frigid
It's okay.
temperatures.
Everywhere is so cold. I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't
I
want to look
know.
like I have like massive goosebumps. Are those the Montreal bagels?
They are. How about that?
I've
Fitting,
seen
right?
those, yeah.
You're the first one to notice.
Yes, let's go.
Yeah. Ellie, so nice to meet you. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Not one, not two, not three, fourth Olympic Games.
Yes.
That's unheard of, especially as a gymnast. How did you do this? How did you get to this point? How did your body hold up?
Yeah, I mean, it's not every day that you see, especially on the women's side of gymnastics, someone going to 4 Olympics. And I think for me, like you would have asked me around my first Olympic Games, if I had thought that I'd be going for my 4th, I probably just wouldn't have really known. But at that time, there weren't a lot of athletes on the women's side doing it. And there wasn't a lot of like role models to look for in that capacity. But I had just goals and dreams that I wanted to achieve. And I really love the sport and I'm passionate about it. So that, I think, is what has continued to keep me in the sport and continued to keep me driving towards the goals and the dreams that I have. And as I got older in the sport, it was looking at how can I create this to be more of a long-term approach? How can I change my training to be able to account for the load that's going through my body, keep it healthy, keep it safe? And I attribute a lot to my coaches and my family for always like raising me and empowering me to be strong and healthy and really just support my body and listen to what my body needs and to be able to communicate. So I feel like all of those components together really have come together to allow me to have a long career in the sport and still be continuing to improve. You know, when I'm in my later 20s, and now you're seeing in the sport too a lot of female athletes being successful and still staying into the sport. And so hopefully those 15, 16-year-olds can see it and think, you know, this is more of the norm and that's something I can do. Obviously
we have to get through Paris, but is it possible you'll go for 5, or is this the last stand, so to speak?
Yeah, it's like one day at a time for now.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I always say I don't like to set an end date for myself. And as long as I love what I'm doing and my body can handle it, I want to continue as long as I possibly can. So I wouldn't like count that out of the books, but you know, I think it's just one day at a time for now. First we got to go for Paris and then we'll see how everything's moving from there.
You know, we've talked to some athletes who made their Olympic debut in Tokyo. Very unique Olympic experience because of the pandemic. As someone who had been to 2 other Olympics and then you go to that one, just to ask bluntly, like how depressing was it over there? Did it actually feel like an Olympic experience?
It was really challenging. The preparation towards the Olympics, the isolation, the stress and the anxiety that came about it, and then at the actual Olympic Games and in the village, it was very different. Usually there's interaction between athletes and teams, and there is like camaraderie, and you get to go see other sports. You can be the audience and the cheerleader. There's an audience, there's friends and family. There's so many aspects that Tokyo didn't have. And I mean, it's great that the Olympics still went ahead and these athletes could get their Olympic experience, but I wouldn't necessarily call it the Olympic experience. Because yes, it's about our performance. We train our whole lives to go to the Olympics, but it's also about unifying and bringing nations together, bringing athletes together, and you know, connecting and having that experience. So that was, I think, tough in Tokyo, and just the stress and anxiety around COVID the whole time.
You're one of the faces of gymnastics in Canada. You're obviously a veteran, if you will. You're very active on social media. I like the stuff that you put out a lot on your Instagram. Well done.
Thank you.
Just a couple of months ago, you were competing, and I saw an interview where you were quite critical of Gymnastics Canada. You were talking about how late the events were happening, and then you had to wake up early and whatnot. And you know, sometimes you don't hear people be that critical, especially in the event itself, like in the mix zone, so to speak. I'm wondering why you felt the need to do that. Is it because you're one of the veterans, and if you received any blowback for your criticism? Yeah, so I think that was more in direct of the actual World Championships and the way that was organized. So that wasn't on GymCan. That was just the World Championships. The competition was really, really late at night, and then we had drug testing, and then you'd have to be back at the venue the next morning to start getting ready for competition. So just in the sense of athletes' safety and athletes' recovery and well-being,
I think this is something in sport in general we need to have conversations about, is making sure that we're prioritizing that, making sure that we're not putting the athlete's safety in jeopardy because of TV or because of another reason. That the athlete's safety should be the number one priority. And yes, there is wiggle room, but just making sure that being able to at least communicate that and speak up about it, hopefully that can create some change, or at least some awareness about it that can lead to change. Because yeah, at the end of the day, gymnastics is really dangerous, and we want to make sure that everyone's safe, and we want to keep people involved in sport. So we want to make everyone happy, but I think there are some things that when you're outside of the sport, you maybe don't think about. And so it's good to be able to communicate those and for others to hear those things. Yeah, and there have been some things, again, that, you know, I've tried to be a little bit more vocal on, but I think the biggest thing for me was hopefully to try and create change, whether that's within Gymnastics Canada or gymnastics or in sport in general, to be an advocate for the athletes and to speak up to try and make productive change, and in a collaborative way. I think that's the most important.
Do you feel like the powers that be are open to change? Are they receptive to your words?
I hope so. You know, I honestly wish I had had maybe a little bit more reaction or
Are you talking
communication.
specifically about that, or in
Not
something?
specifically about that,
What
but
is,
just
what is something that is kind of bothering you right now, like top of the list, that you would love to see changed?
yeah. So I think the number one thing is about prioritizing the athletes,
Okay.
and not only just as athletes, but as humans first. So whether that comes in day-to-day in the gym, in competition settings, media, whatever that is, prioritizing them as humans first instead of just focused on as athletes, I think is going to be the number one thing. And yeah, having people engage and want to have conversations, want to communicate about it, and not being so defensive or like having these big interactions that aren't going to be productive and move forward. I think it's about really sitting down, having those conversations, and trying to figure out in a respectful way how we can go about doing that.
You mentioned gymnastics being a very dangerous sport. It takes a toll on your body. Over the course of your career, how many injuries do you think you've sustained, like serious injuries? Or dare I ask, even surgeries have you had?
Yeah, so I've had 5 surgeries.
Okay.
All kind of on my ankle, toe situation. And then I've had some other injuries, kind of like fluke injuries along the way. Yeah, unfortunately, gymnastics is a sport where it uses your whole body, and it is really hard and it's really dangerous what you're doing. So you have to prepare as best as possible to try and avoid injuries, be strong, and prepare your body for the load that it's going through. But sometimes you have a landing that's slightly off, or, you know, something happens. So I have had some injuries along the way that I've had to deal with and manage and overcome, but I feel like I've learned a lot from those, and every time I'm able to learn, it's another tool that I can put in my box, and it builds your confidence, it expands your comfort zone, and then as well I can give my experiences to other athletes who might be going through that and hopefully support them.
And so when you think about Paris, in your heart of hearts, like what is a goal that you would like to achieve? I mean, silly question in one way, because everyone wants to win gold, but for you, is there something specific that you are striving for that you feel like is attainable?
Yeah, my biggest thing I'm saying to myself is I want to go to Paris and I want to have no regrets. I want to know that I've done everything possible to prepare, and I'm so happy with that preparation. I've also enjoyed the preparation. You're not going to enjoy it every day, but even on the lows and the highs, making sure that you're knowing that this is part of the process and you're actually finding the positives and the fun and the enjoyment. So I want to go to Paris knowing that, you know, I've done everything that I possibly could, and I set myself up in the best possible way to go out and have the greatest performance I can. And yeah, hopefully that would lead towards a great team result or individual result, getting Team Canada on the podium at the Olympic Games. But first is the process, and then we'll move to the result.
And just curious, do you say that because you've had regrets in the past?
I think COVID was really tough. Yeah. I don't think that was like the greatest preparation we possibly could have had. I'll say this, any athlete, you're going to have things that come up, whether it's injuries, mental blocks, bumps in the road, whatever it is, there are things that come up. It's not going to be a perfect preparation. It never is. There's always going to be something. But I think it's about how you handle those things and knowing, having more experience in that, really taking that joy and enjoying, because I do best when I'm enjoying and I'm having fun, I'm focused, but I know that I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing. And so I think that's a main goal for me going into Paris, is really just enjoying the whole process.
Well, can't wait to see you compete. Well done for Olympic Games. Incredible achievement in its own right, and hopefully you do end up on that podium. It would be great to see.
Perfect.
Best of luck to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.